What up? What up? We're doing a late night edition of the Beefy Boys Breakdown, episode 123. Got some tough scheduling kind of to work around. So over the next couple of days, we're going to be releasing this episode kind of in multiple parts. We're doing the early prelims right now tonight, and then I think we'll probably do the prelims at some point tomorrow, and then we'll get to the main card probably on Monday, unfortunately, but it's looking like it. But either way, we're going to talk about these early prelims. We've got UFC 286 today, and I got to say, in my opinion, it was a pretty top-heavy card. I thought it was like a lot of the main and co-main was really doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But
I think that's definitely fair to say. I think also fair to say we were kind of discussing it. I had pretty big expectations for these fights. I mean, if you think about it, man, third fight on the card is Joanne Wood and Luana Carolina, which both those girls have been on main cards of pay-per-views, no less. So I'm just saying there were names here, there was talent here. It was rich with like prospects but here was the problem, I think, for I was hyped for the guys that we were getting to watch fight. I wasn't hyped for the matchups they were being given in most of these fights.
Well, and I honestly just think 6 early prelims is just too much.
Okay, and I think this is the perfect time to get into it before we dive into the Miller fight. What's up with the 6-4-5 split? What we can't just do a 5-5-5 anymore?
Yeah, the 6 on the early, I'm not a fan of it. Or even why did some of these fights have to be that night? I don't know. I guess because they had to get the British fighters on there. But anyway, we'll get into it. We got Veronica Hardy.
I would just say, to end that point, I would rather there be 4 early prelims than 6 prelims. Give people a showing on ESPN. What the fuck?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just saying, when there's 4 cards a month, right? So, there's no shortage of opportunities. You don't have to force fit it. You don't have to cram, Dusko Todorovic on an early prelim just, for the fuck of it. You know what I mean? But we got Veronica Hardy, plus 320 underdog, wife of Dan Hardy. Dan Hardy was in her corner. That was pretty cool. Taking on Juliana Miller, minus 390 favorite. When I was at the sportsbook, she was a minus 500. So a lot of late money came in on Hardy, which is good on him. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
But this money line was wild to me because, I'm not going to sit here and act like hindsight 2020. I did think Miller would win. But it was a no bet for me, even from a parlay perspective, just because I did not see the value is not there. She's not a dominant enough fighter to really be minus 500 over anybody.
And how many UFC fights she have? 2. There's no.
She had the tough finale and then this one, so debatably 0.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is this is her second UFC fight? She will have she made it to 2. It's her second fight. That's and she's super young. Not from a big gym. I think there's just a lot of things stacked against her that would be why would she be successful early? Why would she grow so fast?
And she is marketable and she's cool and everything. But I remember I watched that season of Tough, and it was never this girl's skill set. It was really just that she was a dog and she was tough and she was about it. She was game.
Her cardio and her mindset is killer.
Yes, but it wasn't ever she does this XYZ really well.
Her technique is, although I will say, great ground game. However,
good ground game, but yeah,
yeah, fair. But that's fair. But that's the best part of her game. Her striking, holy shit! And with that being said, let's dive into it because that is going to be the main point of this fight: is striking versus grappling and damage versus not being able to finish submissions.
Yeah, for sure. And it was very entertaining, especially from the perspective of somebody who's been tapped in with this kind of huge money line all week. Really from the jump, Hardy was having a lot of success, and it was just very
literally from the start.
Wow, Miller was supposed to steamroll through this hot knife through butter, and she's getting all that she can take right now. So obviously round 1 was 10-9 Hardy.
She was doing a great job, man, of countering and then landing big combinations and dodging the 1 or 2 big shots Miller would throw and then answering with 3 stiff shots down the center. And she would throw down the center and Miller would literally be throwing hooks up here and uppercuts over here. She looked like a puppeteer out there. It was crazy.
Yeah, Miller's striking was horrendous. It's a game marching forward,
And could eat a
engaging.
shot, like ate several shots, and literally was just like fuck that, and just kept walking forward. But that's not how you win fights. Like we have said for almost a year now, and I can't wait for. I'm sure pundits are going to pick it up. Tough is going to be like they're going to start dropping the word tough from the descriptions of fighters because they're going to have this overall overarching conversation of like, yeah, it's not a good thing. But we've been saying that it is a good thing, but it's not something that
It,
you want to be
it's it,
complimented on.
you're better off going to contender series. Or like I said, I mean, Juliana Miller was what
Oh
three
no
and
no no!
one before tough.
I mean tough like the physical trait of being like tough.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like
No,
Ultimate
no, no.
Fighter,
Like if
Juliana
I'm saying
Miller.
like, yeah, that dude's tough as hell. It's like, well, that means I've seen him get his ass whooped.
Well, and it's like we got to know you're tough without it really being a factor in the fight. Like we got to just like take your word for it that you're tough. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
like a guy. We'll get to it later in the undercard. A guy like Muhammad Makayev comes to mind. It's like we haven't really seen him get beat up. I don't think anybody's out here saying like thinking that he can't take a punch. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of
Or
implied.
like Shemaev was a great example of before the Burns fight.
Yes,
Like we know he's tough, but like, can he actually take a punch if he can get punched? And then turns out he's a goddamn boogeyman.
for sure, for sure. But yeah, I mean, really, it was all Hardy, and really in all rounds. I mean, rounds one and two, she was pretty much, piecing her up on the feet, getting the better of her on the feet. I thought she probably would have been better off just keeping it standing because whenever she was beating Miller on the ground, but there was a less of a margin. It was much closer on the ground. Miller was
It
throwing
was
up
like
some submissions.
yeah, it was the scariest way to be beating someone. And also, uh, just from a technical perspective, I don't know what the fuck was up with Miller trying to go for the crossbody arm bars and then swiveling her hips whenever she would get to a good position on it, because it was like she's trying to catch the head to lock it in, but like all good when she tucks her head, that's when you go omoplata and stand up. She'd go omoplata and keep trying to crank an arm bar, and I'm like, you're gonna bend her arm the right, like you're gonna put her arm like this the right way, like that makes no
Yeah,
sense.
it was bizarre. DC was like almost like chuckling. It was a bad look for Miller. Like she literally looked like she like didn't
Didn't
know what she
really
was
know what she was
doing.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, yeah, Hardy wasn't, is no world beater, and she was just like outclassing her, and really wherever the fight went, and avoiding those incorrect submission attempts. Round three, Hardy decided to lean even more into the takedowns, which, like I said, I thought she was that, her path to victory was on the feet. She probably got a finish. So I don't know, maybe she did feel some power from Miller or something that she didn't like. But anyway, Hardy ends up with like four takedowns in the third round. She does land a head kick and get some good counter strikes off when they were on the feet. I had a 30-27 Hardy, which was just 7. Like, honestly, doesn't even paint a picture of like Miller was never close, really. I mean,
No.
if you want, like, there
Submission
was
was
like
the only
a submission.
right, like
Yeah.
maybe two. There's one arm bar and the one like knee bar leg lock thing she had. That was like the only two that were ever like, oh, this is threatening. Past that, that was it.
She got outclassed on the feet, on the ground. It was a bad look. Like I said, your Ultimate Fighter champion. They're obviously, I don't want to say fast tracking because she is jerking the curtain on the early prelims against Veronica Hardy, but it's the prelims of this card. It's a big card.
Yeah,
She's the
and it's her
Ultimate Fighter
second
winner.
fight in the UFC.
Like I think it's
Heavy
fair to say
favorite.
that, like, yeah, minus 500 at points of the week, and it's just like I don't know, man, because like, that's a lot of holes to fix. Like you're like
If you really think about it, this is the same introduction we got with Makayev. He was the first fight against Malcolm Gordon of that card, which was Fight Night London. Oddly enough,
yeah.
literally the first fight. We didn't know who he was. No, I'm sorry, that was a different card. His first fight was against Cody Brundage, and he just starched him immediately. And we were like, oh shit, we got someone here. Well, that's kind of the same thing they're doing with Julianne Miller.
Miller.
Juliana Miller, yeah, I'm sorry. Um, she but she couldn't have fought in that placement in her first fight because the tough fights have to take place at a certain spot in the card, right? So like essentially this is her first fight, like free card placement, and they placed her at the start. I think it says two things. One, you're really young, but two, here if you look at her opponent and her odds, they have very high expectations.
I agree. I think that's fair to say. But yeah, fall short here. Gave the typical Instagram, I'm going to go work harder, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, I'm sure she is going to work hard. I don't think anybody questions that she's working hard. I think she just like
Nah, she
in
be going
over
on
her
vacation
head.
too much. I follow her Instagram. She's on vacation way too goddamn much.
I think the expectations might be a little bit high for old Miller. But let's keep it pushing. This next fight actually gives us plenty to talk about. We got Jai Herbert plus 170, the Black Country Banger, taking on Ludovic Klein minus 200. This was a fight that we disagreed on during the week. There was a couple where we went the opposite way, which is fine. That's cool.
Especially with odds this way and the way this fight played out.
Yeah, for sure. This fight was so close and a lot of different ways to score it, which is why we definitely got to go round by round.
Oh, yeah.
Round one, in a weird way, was the clearest round. It was a round where the guy on his back was winning from strikes.
Yeah,
yes, it was a
the
very
strikes
bizarre
and then
fight.
the up kick.
Yeah, we got the actually cut Klein like pretty early on with an
too.
up
That was
kick.
a big ass cut.
And then he was dropping like Tony Ferguson elbows and punches, up kicks. Like it was crazy how much damage he was doing from his back.
Well,
you don't see it that often.
The length was like he was literally like weaponizing his length, which is like what you have to do if you're Jai Herbert, and it was like genius. Like he's so long that like from his back you could tell Klein wasn't like expecting like, oh, I can't, like I'm safe here. He just started eating shots. He was like, holy shit, this guy's long.
Yeah, for sure. Damage was done. So, yeah, round 1, 10-9, Jai Herbert. I don't really think many people debate that. But it is a weird round where the guy on bottom, like, clearly wins. You don't see that too often. Now, round 2 is where it starts to get a little murky, and I do think it can go kind of every way.
So 2 judges went one way and 1 judge went the other here.
10-9 Herbert. I thought the leg and body kicks over the course of the round really Klein for the most part was getting outstruck, and then at the very end of the round he lands a pretty big out elbow, like a pretty nice elbow, pretty impactful standing elbow. But I just didn't think it was enough to like steal the round. I mean, obviously he did more than just the one elbow, but I thought besides that elbow, it was Jai Herbert like winning. I wouldn't say comfortably, but I thought Jai Herbert won the round. The elbow made it close.
So Herbert, from the strike numbers, outstruck him by 2 that round. And so after having seen that, granted the judges can't see it, but I saw it like live toward the end before Klein hit that little flurry. What I thought when I saw that was, well, Klein's been landing cleaner and harder. So like for me, now here's what I'm saying is, it might have been a perspective change too, because in round 1 he was getting hit pretty damn hard. Like he was getting hit really hard. Taking a lot of damage, and in round 2 he mitigated so much damage and was able to do more damage than I thought than he did in round 1. So I was like, well, it's clearly a much better round here, and I ended up leaning 10-9 to Klein, but I didn't have a problem with that being for Herbert because I did write very close second round.
I feel the same way. Like if somebody gave that to Klein, I don't think they're crazy. It hurt. Herbert's damage was a lot of leg kicks, body kicks. Not as like impactful. Doesn't jump off the screen.
It's not visually impactful. Yes, exactly. Now that being said, 2 judges scored at Klein, 1 judge scored at Herbert. So 1 judge now has it 2018, 2 judges have it 1919. So lots riding on this third round.
Yeah, I was seeing it like the first judge there. And round 3, man. So we get the point deduction because of like back to back.
I mean, you have to take this point too. I fully agree with this point take. Bisping was like on his fucking hill dying for British fighters, by the way. I don't know if you noticed. I got really sick of that really fucking fast.
DC was kind of checking it, but it's bad when DC is the like arbiter of fucking objectivity.
Oh my god! And then Anik's over there juicing Bisping too. Like Anik, shut the fuck
up. But so we get the point deduction, which I agree with. Like I said, I agree with most point deduction. I think more points need to be taken, even though it does give us like screwy outcomes. Like I get more pissed about the stuff that's not called. Like,
well, if you get your first warning in the back, like they say, then I think you only get 1 warning in the fight for whatever infraction occurs, and then at your second time, like, sorry, bro, like would be your 3rd warning, your 3rd strike. I have to take this point. And if it's super egregious, like we'll get to it obviously when we get to the main event. But like you immediately have to take a point for those when it's that level of egregiousness.
Yeah, no, I agree. So it makes the scoring of round three that much more interesting because the round was close regardless. So like
Well, and
if you had a razor thin round with a point deduction, shit gets real squirrely.
well, and I thought Klein did a really good job 3 minutes of round three, and then in
The
that
first
last
3 minutes,
yes, exactly in that last 2 minutes, Herbert ends up getting into the clinch, getting the takedown, and essentially riding out the round. Klein got that reversal, but then they stand up and Klein takes more damage at the end. It was almost like, oh well, damn, Herbert just kind of stamped this round back to himself, which he
I
had to
agree.
do because he lost the point. So I scored at 9-9 for Herbert, which means
Me
I
too.
had the fight as a 28-28 draw. You had it 29-27 for Herbert. We're actually
Yeah,
both represented here on the scorecard, oddly enough.
yeah, we paint the perfect picture of it.
And now,
Um,
you know what's crazy is this is a majority draw, so two judges go 28-28. One judge agrees with Dominic here, 29-27. I think if someone did win the fight, it was Herbert, just from like a stand back, drop scores. Who won this fight? Herbert, probably, right? But outside of that, I would say that I had a note. I thought it would be a majority decision to Herbert. I thought one judge would have my scorecard and the others would have it for Herbert because
honestly, me too.
I honestly thought round two, like I was like I might be on a little bit of a branch here for Herbert because I did have a bet, or for Klein because I did have a bet on Klein, so I had to take that in consideration.
And I think like since it's a draw, you just get your bet back, right? No,
I don't think so because you can bet for draws.
maybe that's
I
unfortunate.
think when it's
I know on a
I think when the
parlay
fights
they
are
scratch the leg.
yeah, so I think maybe you get
Straight,
your
I
money
don't know.
back. I don't. Yeah, I think straight you have to pick draw, which just fucking sucks.
That does suck. But yeah, because I didn't actually have money on it, so I picked Herbert, but I didn't bet Herbert. You actually bet Klein, so you did get a little bit job there, perhaps. But yeah, man, I thought I had it for Herbert. Razor close fight. Um, it's a draw. Both of these guys. The fact that this fight was so close makes a lot of sense because they're like in the same spot of the division, right? Like,
No,
you know, it would be a fun. You know, it'd be a fun fight though, and it wouldn't really be for anything. But tell me, like Jai Herbert, Bobby Green, wouldn't it be like fun?
be super fun, especially like the style matchups.
Yeah, like the striking and the head
Hell, even
movement and the
even
athletic.
Klein Bobby Green would be fun because I think Bobby Green would kind of piece him up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Any last comments on that one?
Uh, I don't have too much on that one, man. It's just more so that like Herbert looked better than I thought he would, and Klein kind of was who I thought he was. So with that being said, like that made this fight super close. You know what I mean? Because like if Herbert was gonna have a good day, that essentially meant like this was a coin flip, and that's kind of how it came down.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Up next, though, we got Joanne Wood, who, like you said, has had some pretty high card placement in the past. I think her card placement as of late shows where she's kind of at in her career. Minus 170 favorite, though, so Vegas liked her. You liked her. This is another fight we disagreed on. I actually put Carolina on my parlay. I thought I like spotted some value here on the early prelims at the plus 145 for Carolina. Fight taking place at the flyweight division. I honestly just thought that Joanne Wood at 37 years of age, like this part's probably still true. Like her best days are behind her. Like it doesn't mean she's like washed, but I'm saying like she's whipping the main card of the early prelims. Like that's not a coincidence, right? So I thought it was just going to be the case of a younger fighter catching an older fighter like on the way down. I don't necessarily think that high of Carolina. It's not like I'm some Carolina, you know, you know, coal shoveler, but like I just thought that credit she had more left in the tank than I thought she was going to.
Yeah, this was a fight where I actually was so like I felt really locked in on this fight, man. I actually liked Wood by decision here. I didn't get ballsy enough to bet it. I did better on the money line, obviously minus 170, so that's not like saying a whole lot. But the way I kind of saw this was that like Joanne Wood never been finished on the feet. It's kind of Carolina's way to finish. She was on the feet, so I was like, well, that already bodes really well for Wood because I don't think she's going to get technically outstruck by this girl that's like literally wild. Like Carolina's wild. Like does not possess good technique. So that being said, I was like, well, this is like a master technique veteran versus like essentially a Juliana Miller, like a girl that's just super game, super good cardio, and really athletic. And Carolina's super athletic. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take the veteran with the technique at least one more time. Now, I think Wood's time is coming. The fade is coming.
Yeah. I thought I was there. You know what I mean? I wasn't. That's really all I was betting. I didn't really have like a technical X's and O's breakdown like that. I was just kind of like betting on Wood's downfall, which makes me sound like a terrible human. But
no, I mean, you're right, though. It's the end of the career. It's kind of,
yeah.
Just for anyone at home that's wondering, the Beefy Boys did officially back Edwards for this event. And a lot of that had to do with two simple facts. Usman is aging out, and also UFC former title holders in their immediate rematch are 3-11 all time. So those two factors being taken in heavily weighed by us, I think, essentially were why we backed Edwards.
And I have won bets off that kind of logic before, so, it didn't go my way this time. I mean, this fight was close, though. I mean, I do think, it's a split decision here, so it's not like Joanne Wood just, completely outclassed Carolina. Now, I think in the first round, she pretty much did. I don't think there's really too many nice things to say about Carolina's performance in the first round. I mean, she was fighting back. She was game. But other than that, I thought Wood – she was outstriking her at distance. She was outstriking her in the clinch. She was using that clinch control. Wasn't just super violent, but I thought easy 10-9 Joanne Wood. Now, round two gets a lot closer.
Yeah.
I thought Carolina starts to perform better and the gap starts to close. That being said, I thought Wood did just enough in round two as well. I thought I had.
Strangely enough, maybe not strange. I agree with you. I say strange because only one judge agrees with us. Let me check that and make sure I'm not lying here to us. Okay, so two judges agree with us to this point that JoJo took rounds 1 and 2. Actually, one judge gave Wood 2 and gave Carolina 1.
I think that's wild. I think that's kind of
wild to me.
Yeah, I do. I think that's pretty out of line. Now, round 3, another very close round, not really dying on any hills, could have really gone either way. I gave round 3 to Carolina. That big knee to the head factored in. Those wild bombs were finally starting to land, as Wood got more tired in the head movement and the reaction time and just got more labored. So Carolina started to land some damage finally in round 3. It was kind of a too little, too late situation. She was kind of I thought going to outlast Wood. If this was a 4th round, hypothetically, I would like Carolina a lot, but obviously it's a 3-round fight. I had it 29-28 Wood, which only one judge agrees with.
I saw the 3rd round as essentially a coin flip of a round that I thought could go either way because, like you're saying, Carolina was starting to land with that damage, and Wood was getting off probably the same amount of damage she was getting off in the other 2 rounds, but Carolina having more damage herself was that equivalating factor. I literally had it tied with 15 seconds to go in the round, and then Wood hit that really nice flurry to end the fight. Essentially just visually swayed me. I have no problem with Carolina taking the 3rd. Literally no problem at all. In fact, 2 judges gave her the 3rd. One judge gave Wood the 3rd. So I had 30-27 Wood. One judge had that. One judge agrees with you, 29-28 Wood. One motherfucker gave Carolina the fight 29-28, and I cannot believe that.
And that's the judge that gave
1 and 3
Carolina the 1st round. Yeah,
the 2nd round was her best round.
If you give her
second
2
or
and
3rd.
2 and 3, I'm not dying on
that's what I thought when I originally had seen the scorecard be read. I was like, oh, he gave Carolina 2 and 3. I can at least see it. Seeing him give her 1 is like, bro, we're not watching the same fight.
Yeah, that's literally just fucking pointless. And I agree. No, I do think the right person won. So at the end of the day,
agree.
And like I said, and that's even as a Carolina better, take my parlay. So it sucked, but Joanne Wood have just enough left in the tank, and I still don't necessarily change my takes on Joanne Wood. I think Carolina is just kind of bad, not world class.
I think Carolina is a low tier fighter.
Yeah, for sure. We'll keep it pushing though, because this next finish on a night with very few finishes was a fantastic finish, and we'll get to it. We got Jake Hadley minus 425, kind of a guy who gets forgot about in the flyweight division. I say that because I forgot about him in the flyweight division, and I kind of I don't know. I talk about myself as a guy who likes flyweights, and This guy just wasn't too much on my radar. I got to be honest.
This is tough
because flyweight's been popping lately.
Well, and his debut in the UFC was against a really tough Brazilian. I can't remember his name, but it was almost like a too much too soon for him kind of a thing. And then his last fight, he came out and starched a guy.
Yeah. No, for sure. And then, so he's taking on Malcolm Gordon in this match, plus 350 underdog for Gordon, who missed weight pretty bad, 129.5 for a flyweight fight. I'm surprised they let it go on.
Yeah, what was his weight? 129.5?
Yeah.
I mean, that's 3.5 pounds, and we did see a fight go on last week that was fucking 7 or 8 pounds over.
Yeah, they didn't relax on that lately.
Yeah, however, I'm just going to say this. Malcolm Gordon does not need to be in the UFC any longer.
Yeah, that's how I feel. And that's why, you hear people be like, oh, the guy who missed weight has an advantage. And it's like, usually the guy that missed weight's on bullshit. Unless you're a Hamzat. Usually especially on these prelim level fighters, if they're missing weight, that's means they're on bullshit. That doesn't mean that oh, I'm going to be heavier in the cage tonight.
It means they fucked around. That kind of, they didn't have enough professionalism.
That mindset, that kind of just you hear that thrown around, just conventional MMA wisdom, oh, it's an advantage to miss weight. And I'm just I push back on that. If maybe the highest level, the Hamzat situation, but that's the exception, not the rule. I said and then you magnify that, especially at these prelim level fighters. You come in off weight by 4 pounds, that tells me you're on bullshit.
I think the only time I would say that it's a decided advantage, or they have decided it's an advantage, is when you see a dude come in, miss weight by 4 pounds, and then they get the extra 90 minutes or whatever, and then they don't lose any more weight, and you're like, okay, so you actually just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, for sure. But. So this was insane, and this fight technically lasted 1 minute and 1 second, but it felt like it was over immediately.
I thought it was a 25-second fight. I didn't know how it lasted.
Felt that way. Either, man. But yeah, so I mean, what seemed in real time, as soon as the round started, Hadley drops him. Well, he lands the first real big left hook to the body.
That's and it was high too. It was lower chest, just underneath the chest plate.
But the way it had so much impact on it, it just looked different. It so impactful. And then, I mean, like I said, what seemed in real time, 10 seconds later, lands essentially the same shot but better placed, and down goes Gordon like a sack of potatoes.
And it was tough. He dropped, and then obviously Hadley finishes him with the ground and pound. And it's when I watched the replay, what I looked for was, does he keep covering his face because his head hurts, or no? He immediately reached back down to his body once the ref pulled off Hadley.
Yeah, no, brutal is essentially a body shot knockout. I mean, it's going to go down as a ground and pound TKO, but that's honestly a shame. This should be remembered for that body work.
I agree. It's a body. It's a body KO.
And shout out to Tapology for taking the extra time. They officially listed as hook to the body and ground strike. So good on them.
Yeah, fuck.
And I believe this got a bonus.
Yes, it did. Yeah, I'm right here. Jake Hadley did get a
only
bonus.
Fight on the early prelims to get a bonus. I thought well deserved. I mean, that was absolutely brutal. And for a flyweight to pack that kind of punch. Now, he calls out Muhammad Mokaev, which we'll get to why that will or won't, probably happen moving forward, I guess, on our next little part of this episode. But in the moment, I loved the Mokaev call out. We'll get to why that may or may not, end up taking place next. But
I thought it was perfect.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, Mokaev's 14, and so if it potentially may not be Mokaev, Mokaev's a 12.
Yeah, but here's my problem with that, man. It's definitely not gonna be Mokaev. We'll get to that later. It's definitely not gonna be Mokaev, and not because any fault of Hadley's. Shout out to Mokaev's toughness, or stupidity. So what I'm thinking though is that if Mokaev beat Malcolm Gordon and dragged it to a 3-round decision and had his back taken at one point in that fight, and Hadley starched him with body shots on the feet, and Hadley and Mokaev have this little scrap at the hotel where apparently Mokaev was walking up on him talking shit, And Hadley's like, bro, I'll fuck you up. Like, don't test me. I think it's a fight they could make. And also, who the fuck did Makayev fight this week? Like, his fight.
They're giving Makayev the O'Malley treatment.
Like Jafel Fiallo, and he didn't look good in that fight either. We'll get to that, obviously. But, like, I'm just saying, based on what I've seen, I don't think it's a reach to say Hadley versus Makayev is a good matchup.
Hadley versus Makayev or an Ulan-Bekov, but I'm just saying Hadley might be a problem. Might be a problem.
Yeah.
Like that was like what he did today. Not many flyweights could do. Just like physically, they couldn't do it.
I like his swagger too.
Yeah, he seems like a fucking dog. But yeah, I mean that fight only lasted 1 minute and 1 second, so I don't know if there's too much else to say about it. Yeah, I'm kind of over Malcolm Gordon, especially off the weight miss, and like essentially wasn't even a competitive fight, competitive performance. But I kind of like me some Hadley. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean we'll see Malcolm Gordon on UFC roster watch. It's fine.
Up next, speaking of UFC roster watch,
Dushko
Todorovic.
Hey, what's more important, winning that belt or keeping your O? Fucking Dushko.
Lost a bunch since then. He cursed himself. Taking on, I guess, ironically, undefeated Christian Leroy Duncan. 7-0, undefeated, making his debut as a -215 favorite in the middleweight division. And
I'm honestly
looked like a big...
I'm such an asshole for not just pounding money into Leroy Duncan, because I knew who he was. I just thought UFC debut, I don't know how this goes.
Yeah, and Todorovic, if I'm not mistaken, looked much better in his last fight than he had the couple before that. So I feel you. And let me see here. I mean, Leroy Duncan, I mean, he looks like a big, mean, athletic son of a bitch just by looking at him, the old eye test. But we didn't get to see a ton of the skill set, unfortunately.
Pretty sure he played D1 football in college.
I think they might have been saying basketball, but
was it basketball? Okay, yeah. I knew it was like he played D1 in America in some sport, and I was like, yeah.
Plus athlete,
super plus athlete. Also, was 7-0 in Cage Warriors with I believe 2 or 3, a title win, and I believe 2 title defenses, middleweight, and is like widely regarded as one of the best Cage Warriors fighters of all time. So with all that being taken into consideration, because the other guys from Cage Warriors that you might know, Patty Pimblett and Conor McGregor. Pretty fucking good at fighting. Maybe not Patty, but Conor for sure. So
yeah, point taken.
So
I think Arnold Allen maybe too, right?
I believe that's right. Yeah, and then Mason Jones is also a guy, so that's one of the ones where you're like, well, shit, Mason Jones lost Ludovic Klein. But yeah, I thought for myself personally, like, man, Christian Leroy Duncan's like a monster, and Todorovic is a head case that just has good punching power. So like, if Duncan can out-athlete him, which every day of the week he won't get hit with this big power shot and should just walk away with this win. Now, granted, we see none of this play out.
Yeah, unfortunately, and a minute and 50, probably a minute and 30 seconds in, they kind of clinch up, and they're kind of just jockeying for position along the fence. And Christian Leroy Duncan does kind of grab Todorovic, and like there's like a twisting
like
kind of
him.
Yeah, and essentially Todorovic in a clinch, kind of nothing even that like extraordinary taking place, just kind of like fighting for clinch position, and ends up essentially tearing the ACL. I mean, I'm no doctor, but he went down. That it was a knee TKO for Duncan, but in super anticlimactic like fashion.
I really hated them showing that injury at least 12 times. Like it started to like bother me. The more I watched shows, the more I was like, oh, I can see his fucking like ACL and MCL just literally snapping in half.
Yeah, man, it's scary because, like I said, it was such a subtle movement, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, there was a fuck ton of twisting and like 2 men's worth of like torque and force and power. Like, it makes sense how that type of injury happens, but it's just so like unassuming, right? Like nothing crazy was taking place, and
right.
Like he's out for a year. It sucks. It's like it's kind of the equivalent of like a non-contact injury in football, like when a receiver goes to plant and cut and blows his knee out, and it's just like you see how that happens, but it still seems like some shit that shouldn't have happened. But like,
so let me ask you about this because I had a buddy in Discord ask me this whenever this injury occurred. Would you rather get your knee like twisted up in like a knee bar, blow it out like this? Would you rather break your shin like Connor, or would you rather have your elbow like torn up in an armbar? If you had to, like, you have to take one of them. Which one of the
oh,
three?
I'm going elbow. I'm going elbow.
Ooh, right? Really?
Yeah, because like, bro, not being able to walk, fuck that shit.
See,
Like,
that's what my buddy Sean was saying, and I disagreed just on this factor that bone break is going to reheal a lot faster and a lot better than any sort of like ligament damage.
yeah, I don't know. I've had a hyperextended
Bro,
elbow.
and yeah, I've
Obviously,
had a hurt elbow, and that shit is not cool.
but I'll take that over not being able to walk.
But like, the elbow's
Easily.
gonna last so much longer though. Like Connor's shit,
Yeah,
he was done
but
within
you
2
can
months.
do shit. Yeah, you're in a cast, a sling, whatever.
You kind of do
You're
shit.
walking
You can
around.
halfway do
You're
shit.
you're driving. You're good to go. You're jerking off. You're fucking crushed. You know?
I mean, yeah, bro, you're driving and jerking off if you break my left leg. Like, I'm good to go. What do you mean?
All
right, but
well,
yeah.
you know, we're off the rails here. You know, the fight doesn't give you much to talk about when you talk about, hypothetical arm breaks and jerking off. So.
That's a great point. It's a tremendous point, in fact. And with that being said, we'll keep it pushing because we didn't get to see anything out of Christian Leroy Duncan, so he has to fight pretty much another guy of Duskro Tudorovic's level. I would imagine the UFC cuts Todorovic, which is real tough for him. That's really tough to have to go through that injury rehab and then go back to like an LFA fight.
Yeah, it is. That's tough, but that's the name of the game. Up next, we got Gabriel Santos, undefeated featherweight prospect, last minute replacement, stepping up to take on Leroy Murphy. Santos plus 155 dog. Murphy minus 180 favorite. Murphy, like, very skilled guy. Like another one of these unranked guys, but is like very good at the sport of MMA. You know what I mean? Like, he is high level. Just not high rank, not high fame, but like high talent.
And is relatively high level, like all over the place too, I'd say.
Oh, for sure. But especially the striking jumps off the page, but he is good in the transitions and the scrambles too.
What I will say though is that like Gabriel Santos, I didn't know a whole lot about him. And I know a whole lot about him now, and I know I should have known more.
Yeah, man,
he impressed the fuck out of me.
Yeah, no, he's good, man. Like, especially for a debut, like in London when you're from Brazil, like,
and on short notice, and like Leroy Murphy being from England, fighting in his hometown as like a well thought of prospect. I mean, he's only minus 180, so Vegas put a lot of respect on Santos.
No, you're right. The Santos is legit 10-0. Only 26 years old, just the definition of a young lion, right? And also Murphy's a dog because he essentially, it was like everything to lose, nothing to gain, really, from fighting Santos.
Absolutely,
I mean, he gets his paycheck, but yeah, I mean, round one was a war. This fight was fucking awesome. I thought, if one of the most epic fights ever doesn't end up being fight of the night on the main card, then I mean, this was like fight of the night potential type stuff. I mean, it was a close fight. Round one was a fucking war.
This was my fight of the night to this point. Yeah, I agree with you. So I thought the first round, the damage was damn near equal. Strike numbers, probably kind of a wash. I thought the big difference was Santos got 2 takedowns. And granted, he got not much control time with it. But I thought whenever you get 2 takedowns, a little bit of control time, and the damage and striking is equal, and the other guy doesn't have those 2 takedowns, well, it's pretty clear who I'd have to score that round for.
I agree with 95% of that. The only thing I would add is that Santos got that damage off at the end of the round, like when the damage took place. Like it was one of those things where Santos had a good beginning of the round and good end of the round. Murphy almost won those 2 minutes in the middle, but it gets kind of like outshined, and like you don't when you go to write your score down.
Well, and think about it, like Santos gets that takedown early and he gets that takedown later, right? Like he kind of bookended the round.
Yes, and it was just, I mean, That shows high fight IQ for the youngin too. You know what I mean? Like that's not a coincidence. Like he won the round. Like he knew how to win the round. Now round two was much closer. I thought round one was much more of a war and like it was a banger. But I felt like comfortable picking Santos as the winner.
Of round
but
two?
round two,
Okay.
round one.
Okay, yeah, that's why I was like, really?
I thought round two was much harder to score, but I did give it to Santos too, though. So
no, I did too. So, and honestly, I thought Santos stole the round in round two.
Yeah. At the very end of the round, he got the single leg, which was fucking nice. He transitioned to taking the back, and then he got fucking like essentially saved by the bell armbar.
Murphy legitimately had to survive, and like had to survive a couple choke attempts and the armbar attempt. Like it was all survival. For me, it was Santos pretty easily. It's insane 2 judges scored this round to Murphy.
Yeah, I will say that if you ask me to judge damage only.
Oh, if damage only, Murphy won. Danger of position and control, Santos had enough to equal out that damage.
I agree. I saw it the same as you, but to me, it's not outlandish to give the guy that clearly won the damage battle the round. That's what I'm saying. Round two was a coin flip, but we both saw it for Santos. That is interesting that 2 judges disagreed with us, though. Now, round 3, I thought was Murphy's best round of the fight.
Fully agree.
It's weird. He really separated. And I don't know if Santos started to get tired or the moment got to him or what. I mean, there's a lot of things that could have been taking place, but Murphy almost like you could say pulled away. I mean, I had him down 2 rounds, so it's like weird verbiage to use, but the gap was wide in round 3. He really just pieced up Santos. Now, Santos got the takedown at the end of the round, and it was a slam takedown. It got a couple style points, but I did not think it was anywhere close to like stealing the round back.
It was the only thing that made any impact in that round for him, for me in my memory. Like, it's the only thing I can remember Santos doing in the 3rd round. Otherwise, it's all Murphy's work.
No, for sure. And Murphy, like I said, just looked phenomenal. I mean, really on the feet. Like, if this was a Muay Thai match, Murphy wins 10 out of 10 times. Anytime they were on the feet, Murphy was getting off. He was, putting out some really slick work. But Santos's ability to just,
muddy up the fight.
Yeah, especially in his debut. I guess that's a high-level guy to debut against, too. So, I mean, I'm high on Santos as a prospect. Murphy wins, which is cool for you because you bet Murphy. So,
yeah, dude. Oh, trust me, as a Murphy bettor, I was like resigned to loss at the end. Like when the final horn sounded, I was like, too little, too late, bro. Like, why couldn't you just defend that takedown the 2nd round? Like, if you just defended the takedown, you could have won this fight. And then they read the scores, and it's split decisions. So they go 29-28 Murphy, and I was like, who the fuck? And they 29-28 Santos, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. It's probably not 29-28 Santos. They said it's 29-28 Murphy. I was like, my jaw was like on the floor. I was like, oh, fucking won money.
Yeah, no doubt. I was stoked for you. I do got to say, it's hard to say Santos was robbed because round 2 was so goddamn close, but I mean, me and you both scored it for Santos, and that's with you being a Santos bettor. So, I mean.
Yeah, like, I honestly, like, it would be, like, kind of outlandish for me not to give it to him, which is, I don't know. I mean, I get it. Like, we talked about damage, but, like, this is point fighting. It's not like a street fight, So.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a Muay Thai match, and it's not. Scoring MMA will always be weird, and until a better system is came up with, which I don't necessarily want, like a purely like data driven, like I don't want some PFL like computer scoring shit either. So like I really don't know. I think the best answer I've heard is having 5 judges instead of 3, and you get. So even if 2 judges are tripping that night, if 3 people have common sense,
right?
But then you still end up with 3-2 split decisions. So it doesn't completely like eradicate it, and then you probably end up with more draws that way. And like it probably solves one problem but creates others. But that's the best suggestion I've heard is like having 5 judges. But then, I mean, when does that stop? Would you just go to 7, go to 9? Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's just.
Let me give you like a crazier thing or like offering here. And
Yeah.
this is where like the conspiracy would play in. But like if the referees of the UFC were also the judges for the fights, then like they really wouldn't obviously have much bias because like they're having to rotate in and out. And
But
then
not like do both at the same time. Like,
no. Like they
while you're
rotate.
not reffing,
Yeah,
you're
you come back and
judging.
score. Yeah, exactly. And then like that also eliminates like any like past fighters from having relationships with them. It also eliminates like those guys all know the sport. Clearly, they have to. And then like what I would also say is the only problem with this though is that like to do that, each state's commission would have to have those officials. So the UFC like would have to then put their own refs and not state commissions. And then it's like, well, now you guys can rig fights. So I don't know. There's no
Yeah,
perfect answer.
no perfect answer. I think that's the real takeaway. Now, Leroy Murphy was originally supposed to fight Nathaniel Wood, who's like right outside the top 15. Um, and or was it? And then I think Caceres is about to fight. So either way, the Nathaniel Wood fight would have been fucking sick, but I think Wood had to pull out and got hurt. But we got Santos out of it, and he's a stud ass prospect, man. But yeah, I mean, some decent early prelims. I mean, there were some good fights. There was some controversy. There was some weird scoring. I just thought there was too many. Was my takeaway.
Yeah, me too. But I mean, that is the 6 fight early prelim. That's wrapping it up for us for now. Um, and obviously, we'll have the prelims and main card coming up. So definitely check back.
Stay tuned. Hit subscribe so you know whenever we drop those next videos.
Yes, sir. We will see you guys very shortly for some more UFC 286 action.